Kia ora. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time today to join us in our third Tourism Tech Talks. So I have to say I'm really excited about today's. Before we do our Tech Talks, we do a run through on the Friday before, and I learned so much from Pallavi. Even though we've been working together so long. So I'm really, really thrilled for all of you that are joining us live today, or those watching the recording. You're in for a great hour. So let's move on to our next slide, where we're going to introduce what we're going to be talking about today, which is brand, design, and storytelling. And so today's really going to be different than the previous talks that we've had. So that's also exciting. And I get the pleasure of introducing you to Pallavi. Now, since part of today is about storytelling, instead of just telling you how long Pallavi's been amazing at a graphic designer and what she's accomplished and how long she's been a T-Hawk, I'm going to share a little story. So Pallavi and her husband moved to New Zealand back in 2013. Her husband, Tapin, was coming to New Zealand to get his MBA at Otago University. And he comes from a family that has tourism background. So he was getting business management, maybe?
Yeah.
Yep. Business management degree. And poor Pallavi had just gotten married and got dragged from India, where it's nice and warm, to Dunedin. So that was quite a shock. But obviously, Tappan was very successful in his degree. And when it came time to get a job, he was looking at tourism businesses that he wanted to work for. And he did very, very well because he did his research and he, A, found Tomahawk, and B, realized that we're a dog-friendly office and I'm a big dog lover. So he reached out, sent his CV, and said, I don't care what I do. I just really want to work for Tomahawk. Everything that you guys are about is exactly what I do. I want to do. And even if you just want to hire me to walk your dog, Tana, I'm up for it. So yes, he got the job. So Tappan became a T-Hawk. In fact, Pallavi's husband, Tappan, created the term T-Hawk. So what we call ourselves. About 6 months into the job, he said he's got an amazing wife at home who's a graphic artist working remotely, and she's sitting by herself, which isn't very creative and isn't really very friendly for what she does. So could he use one of our spare desks at Tomahawk for Pallavi to work? And long story short, because I'm making this too long and I'm taking your precious time, let's just say that we kept Pallavi. Tappan's moved on. He's got a great job in tourism, but we are very, very thankful that Tappan suggested that Pallavi come hot desk, because you've been a T-Hawk now, what, since 2015, 8 years?
Yeah, coming up to 8 years, yes.
Yeah, so exciting, so exciting. So I'm going to stop talking. Let's go to the next slide. And as anybody that's been a part of our Tourism Tech Talk knows, we follow the same format, and we follow this format so those that are new to brand design and storytelling can be taken on the journey. And those that are maybe in marketing and already have a good idea about brand design and storytelling, we can hopefully share some really great tips and tricks with them. So we're going to talk about something new, reliable, underrated, something DIY, really exciting DIY to share today, and something trending. So I am actually going to stop talking. I'm going to pass this over to you, Pallavi. Let's go to our next slide. And will you please share with us what is something new in design, branding, and storytelling?
Absolutely. Okay, first of all, hello everyone. Super excited to do this, and hopefully we share lots of exciting content with you today. What we've chosen for something new is horizontal scrolling. Now, in order to understand horizontal scrolling, I'd like to do a quick introduction into what scrolling really means. I'm sure all of you know what it means, but it's basically going from one section to another, from anywhere on any website, on any app, on your phone, on your desktop. The main purpose is to navigate through different sections through an interface. So now the reason we've chosen horizontal scrolling is that the most common one that you would have seen is vertical scrolling. So when you scroll on a page, you're going from top to the bottom. So content at the top gets hidden, content at the bottom reveals itself. On a horizontal scroll, however, there's something very special. So what happens, it almost feels like you're flipping a book. So you're scrolling like you normally would using, say, your mouse. Or your fingers on your phone. But what's happening is the content, instead of moving from up to down, is moving horizontally from left to right. Now, what we would like to do today is take you through a couple of examples. I'll share some examples on here, but we'll also share them in the chat so you can actually engage with the website and experience it yourself.
So Pallavi, what we're talking about here is kind of like what Netflix has taught us, right? Which
Absolutely.
is that
I'm glad you bring that up.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely something that started this trend. Because Netflix, you are scrolling from left to right. We also used to it's subconsciously embedded in us now, and that's what this new thing is leaning on, that we know this. So this is a really great example. What I would really like to point out is that we're looking at two examples today. One's Home Society and the other one's a vineyard. There's fantastic potential in both of these styles to use tourism websites and tourism brands to showcase. Even though we're not actually looking at them, you'll see as we go through the whole style, that magazine taking you on a journey style, that if you had, say, a brand or a property that has beautiful, and like most of you guys do, beautiful landscapes, beautiful rooms to showcase, this is a really fantastic style to use, take people on a journey, take people on that, as you say, Gina, the first stage of travel is the dream stage, to take people on that dream of this is where I could be, to imagine being in that space. This is a fantastic way to do that. So we'll look at this one, which is Home Society. So this is a really fantastic layout, really clean. You do feel like you're looking at a magazine or a product catalog. And notice how there's, on the vertical scrolling websites, a lot of websites that we recommend having a sticky header at the top of the screen so it follows you as you scroll. Notice how this one, they do it on the left. It follows you because you're going left. It's the same concept, but in a different style. Just keep scrolling through these. There's some beautiful big typographic elements that move through.
So you can see that we actually have a website that we wish had gone live by today, so we could show this example. But you can see how rich this is, right, Pallavi? It's like really, it's that dreamy, rich, luxurious feel, isn't it?
It's so engaging and inviting, and it's appealing. It's different. People remember it.
Beautiful. And you have another example.
I've got another one. This is an even more interesting one, I think. So this is one of a vineyard, which is just loading. Oh, sorry. There we go. So it starts off with this beautiful image zooming in, and see how it's got this arrow. So it indicates to the user what to expect, which is really nice. So it's not a shock to the system that you expect a vertical scroll and something else happens. So they invite you into it.
I think you said at the beginning, even though that arrow is pointing to the right to show the user that that's the expectation, you're not expecting the user to do anything differently, are you?
Absolutely not. And that's the beauty of this. So you're scrolling as you would normally. You're not, as a user, you're not expected to do anything different. The experience, the result back that you're getting, however, is different and appealing and unique. So that's the beauty of the whole thing. We're not expecting new learning from a user, but still giving them a unique experience. So see how this one is, it's got beautiful animations, beautiful panels of content scrolling on top of each other, beautiful colors, beautiful imagery. Do you not feel like you're looking at a magazine, flipping through beautiful pages?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really rich. So we're really excited about this new style because one of the things that when we did the run through that I learned from you is that you can actually combine the horizontal scrolling, yeah, to get that dream on your home page. But then when you need to deliver more of an e-commerce size, then when you're trying to drive bookings, you can then go back to the normal horizontal scrolling.
So if you look at this one, if I click Discover Our Expertise, it takes you onto another page, which is then a normal scrolling page. So that's how it transitions from that. The design element is still similar. So you almost don't even, unless someone's pointed it out to you, might even miss out on the fact that this is happening. It's so
Organic.
smooth and organic, and it takes you on that journey. You don't understand that that's what's happening. That's how smooth it is.
Fantastic.
Okay, I'll go back now we'll quickly talk about what we like about horizontal scrolling. So we've looked at these examples. So a bit of summary of all of the stuff that we've just said. It's obviously very unique, very attractive. It's something that will make your audience, your customers remember your brand. It's that magazine style that we've talked about that takes you on a journey. It's the storytelling. It's the step-by-step running people through the dream, introducing it, then starting off with the images, the beautiful pictures, the typography. The beauty of it, as we said before, not asking for the user for a new behavior, which is brilliant because no one wants to learn new technology when they're in that dream stage. All they want to do is look at beautiful pictures and imagine themselves being there. And the moment you tell them you got to do something different, that's going to be a barrier. It does go a little bit beyond the safe option of vertical scrolling, which is what people are used to, but it is the new thing. People are used to Netflix. We know people know that. So while it's a little bit adventurous, we think it's definitely a fantastic style to make your brand pop. One thing that we would advise, though, as Gina mentioned earlier, it needs to be used for the right content. I wouldn't use it for a heavy e-commerce selling retail business purely because it's a magazine. It's not a shop. Yeah. That's the difference. So very effective for content, really fantastic for that dream stage.
Beautiful.
Awesome. So that's what we have on this one.
Love your choice. And now we are going to talk about something that you can always rely on when it comes to brand design and storytelling. And what have you chosen for reliable?
So we've chosen something for this that is something that you've already got, which is your story. Now, the reason we've chosen this is we strongly believe, and we work with so many people who everyone has a story. Stories have been there from the beginning of time. Stories are, as Gina said earlier, stories are things that you remember. Facts, maybe not. Maybe you listen to 10, you remember 2. But a story, as soon as there's a connection, that's what you remember. That's what you're going to go back to. So it's very important for every brand to put your story out there. Everyone has it. It's the most reliable that you think that you have about your brand. It's about how it's presented and taken to the next step, right? Now, to put things in perspective, let's say you go to a barbecue, meet a new person there, get hit it off really well with them. You seem to like the same things. You seem to have similar personality. You're considering, maybe having them over next weekend at your place for a barbecue, etc., etc. But turns out when you met them, they told you they're a vegetarian. You go home and you are going to find them on social media. You want to add them so you can connect with them. And you see a picture of them enjoying a steak. Now that doesn't add up. So that's a very base level example of what a non-consistent story can do to your brand. It's every little detail matters. What you do on all of your channels does matter. What you say in person, what your product looks like, what your website looks like, what your social media, it all has to add up. The moment you have that vegetarian versus steak, it's going to break your trust. It's going to break that connection because you can see through it. There's no authenticity, and that's exactly what happens with brands. So we really want to be careful with that. Now, one thing that we often get asked about, and this is a really interesting piece for me because I'm the visual designer, is how does the logo tie into the brand story? Is my logo my story, or is it part of the story? How big of a part is it? Now, this is especially relevant in today's world because, as we all know, with AI coming up, you could, in theory, get a new logo every half an hour if you wanted to. But the question is, do you really want to? And does it really do the job? Probably not. Your logo is an important part of your brand story, but it's an element of your brand story. There's so much more that goes on around your brand that has to be told through words, through images. So it's about weaving that story in. So Gina, you've helped a lot of people weave that story into their brand. So I feel like it's best that you speak
You're going to pass
on
the
this.
buck.
Yes, yes, please.
You're going to pass the buck. Look at the brand story is something that really creates, as Pallavi said, that connection, that authenticity, and that trust. Yeah. A lot of times what brands do is they talk about the what they sell instead of the why. So a lot of times the why is your story. I'm sure everybody on this call has heard of Simon Sinek and discovering your why. So, I'll never forget one time I was doing a presentation and I started off by saying a biography about me because I got asked who I was. And I said, oh, my name's Gina Paladini, and I started New Zealand's first B2C inbound agency, and it specialized in American travelers. And then I started ResBook, which is a booking engine, and then Tour Rider, and then now I'm the founder of Tomahawk. I mean, I was boring myself talking about the what, and I could see people like glazing over going, oh my gosh, American of them talking, being a noter and talking about the what. So I instantly changed and then I told the story. And it was an instant creation. I said that in 1994, when I moved to New Zealand to marry a Kiwi, that Kiwi lived in Whitianga. And I wasn't an alcoholic or an angler, which is apparently some of the good things to be if you're in Whitianga. I love Whitianga. I'm saying that as a tongue in cheek. And so when I moved there, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I started having friends and family saying, hey, Gina, I heard you moved to the island off Australia. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how come people don't know how amazing New Zealand is? And I literally just put up a website called New Zealand Encounters and started talking about how unique the country is, the people, that they might not have fly screens here or good coffee. This was back in 94, but this is what you can see and do. And that's how I accidentally started an inbound agency that specialized in Americans. And it took off. But then September 11th happened and I lost all customers. But I still had to feed the kids. So I started a booking engine so that I could book the accommodations that we needed for New Zealand Encounters when it would start again. And then Americans started traveling again. Stay with me. I know I'm taking up your time, Pallavi. Americans started traveling again, and New Zealand Encounters started really getting busy, and it was We were able to book easily with ResBook, but we couldn't keep up with the demand. So that's when we started Tour Writer, so that we could create a system to manage. And then I had what's called a life hiccup, which is a health issue and a divorce. And so I needed to sell the businesses. And when I was selling the businesses, a guy named John Hayson had a business that did a lot of e-commerce and complex software development. And he wanted to buy ResBook because nobody back then was combining airlines and a room. And he's like, our airline customers are going to love this. So long story short, because I am taking Pallavi's time, that man is John Hayson. John Hayson is the other company director of Tomahawk. And we decided to take my tourism background and his website and e-commerce and create Tomahawk. And that is the story of Tomahawk. And so that was a really long story. I didn't mean to take up this much time. But what you'll remember is the story as opposed to the what. You need to find your why. Find the why you started your business, why your business is different, what your passion is about. Then think of your audience and what your values are, and you weave it in. What I left out in that story is that our values and everything we're about is that travel helps create perspectives in people. And we really believe in encouraging people to travel, and we really encourage everybody having the best tools to be empowered for their business. And then you have to, like Pallavi said, you've got to communicate it consistently. So if that is your story and that is your brand values, how do you share that? How do you share that, and where do you share that? And so you share it on your website, you share it with your logo, you share it how you speak, you share it in your tone of voice, you share it in the hashtags you use. So that's the consistency that has to be married together. I'm going to ask the team to add in the chat. We have on our website, under our About page, our story, why Tomahawk is called Tomahawk, and why our logo is our logo and part of our brand story. So let's share that, because I need to stop talking and pass this back to you, Pallavi.
You going to do the example, Gina?
Oh yeah, let's do this. Everybody knows who Airbnb is. And hopefully everybody, because these are all tourism people, understand the story and the brand behind Airbnb. So it was started by Brian Chesky, a San Francisco guy from my hometown, who was going to rent out an air mattress because there was an event going on in San Francisco. Everything was sold out, and he wanted to help with his rent and give another option. So that's how Airbnb started. That's their story. But then they created their value, which is where it is you belong anywhere and connecting hosts with local experiences. So that's what, because I'm trying to make this short so I can stop talking. That's the Airbnb story, brand values, and how they constantly are always encouraging that. When they launched, they had a very, very different logo. And when they really embedded what their brand and their story was about, they created this logo, which is supposed to be like hands that are holding you. And so that's how the Airbnb story and brand is consistent. Yeah, cool. Back over to you.
Okay, next one. Something that is underrated besides Brussels sprouts. So for this one, we have chosen, I shouldn't be partial, but I am going to be, we have chosen my favorite topic, that is fonts.
I'm stopping you. I'm stopping you right there because I'm going to say this. One of the amazing, there's a lot of amazing things about Pallavi, but I'm going to share a story. Pallavi is a fontaholic. She can talk about this all day long. And a fun fact about Pallavi is she actually has created a font that you can buy from Google. What's it called?
Yeah, it's called Mukta, M-U-K-T-A. We'll share a link in the chat.
Okay, very, very
Yeah,
cool.
We'll do a follow-up link check.
Yeah, so I can talk about stories and Google Business Profile all day. You can talk about fonts all day.
Yeah, you're going. A disclaimer, Gina. You're going to have to stop me if I keep going on and start showing that I'm a font nerd. Okay, let's do this. Right. So I would love to take you on a journey of fonts because this honestly, I believe, is one of the most underrated things in design. It does so much, but doesn't get as much attention. So if you think about it, any other marketing content, any collateral you're putting out there, at least 50 to 60% of it is words, right? So words in today's world in digital format, it's fonts. It is, so they really, really, really do matter. The one of the most beautiful things about font is that each one has a personality. There's fat fonts, there's thin fonts, there's tall fonts, there's chunky fonts, but that's not it. That's just very surface level. What each font does is it does evoke a certain emotion in each person, and it's to do with a lot of history that's happened in fonts. For example, you might look at a font and feel like, oh, this feels very sophisticated, but you don't really know why. But there's probably a connection there. You've probably seen really top-end 5-star luxury brands use those kinds of fonts for years now, and subconsciously it's imprinted on your brain that when you see something like that, you relate it back to a certain kind of a brand.
Is it kind of like how a color has certain feelings and
Absolutely.
emotions?
So you look at a red where there's some very obvious colors, the ones that you use. So you would say use a red for a call to action because that might stand out more. You'll use your grays for your backgrounds. So it's very similar to that. In terms of what strikes what. Well, now, one of the coolest things I think, so there's a really popular typographer called Robert Brinkhurst who wrote a beautiful book that I often reference to. So he said a beautiful thing that good typography is invisible. So what he means by that is it needs to do the job of bringing out that emotion without being in your face and without telling you. It just needs to happen at a subconscious level. That's what beautiful typography is. Now, apart from the emotional aspects, of course, there's a lot of technical aspects when it comes to fonts. So, for example, there might be so the reason I bring this up is because when you choose a font for your brand, it's all of these things that you really want to make sure that are ticked off. So there are fonts out there that are just provide uppercase. So it might look great for a few words, but when you start putting it on a website, you're probably not going to want to appear shouty throughout the content. So it's things like that. There are fonts that, and again, in today's world, it's very important. There are fonts that, it's shocking number of fonts that don't support macrons and other marks that go on. So let's say you were using a Maori, sure, your website's in English, but you're using Maori words here and there weaved in through the content. Can you use them authentically by using the marks that you need to use? It's those type of things that you need to be aware of. Is there maybe potential for your business to be displayed the website in another language, perhaps? Is there a font that supports and still looks like the English font? So you're getting visual consistency, but still presenting the content to 2 different languages. So there's a lot that goes in there that needs to be thought about. Now, there's a few different font categories. There's a lot in there. I'll try to keep it short. So there's 4 main categories of fonts. I'm sure you all recognize these, possibly just don't know the names of what they call, but you would have seen this because you see fonts everywhere around you. So
you know what? Sorry, I'm going to stop you right there because I think that's an interesting question to ask.
Oh, yes.
Anybody that's on this webinar, even do they know what font is used on their website?
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, because
chat away, let us know.
Yeah. Go for it. Sorry, Pallavi. I just thought that was because we know how you feel about fonts, but maybe, yeah.
We would absolutely love to know. So, and you may not have just one font. It's very common practice to use two fonts combined with each other because each one has a different purpose. So for example, serif, so there's four main ones. So the serif, sans serif, script, and display. Serif ones are more formal, sans serifs are more casual, script is a script. You probably see it more in the, say, formal wedding invitation, that kind of a look. Display fonts are chunkier and have a much more of a personality. So serif fonts, as I say, so what defines a serif font? So think Times New Roman, think the fonts that have the decorative things under them. So that's called a serif, as you see in the green marking. There's lots of different categories within that. Let's not go into that. That will definitely classify me as a nerd, so I will stop. Uh, but you know what I mean. It's serif fonts, more serious, no nonsense, lot more trust when it comes to serif fonts. So again, comes with history. Serif fonts were traditionally used for newspapers. So as soon as you see that connection, there's that trust that builds up, that professional feeling that you see. I'd like to share a website here quickly. Just to show you, so this is Flock Hill, and we've used serif font, the refined wilderness. Sure. So what I'd like to really point out is, sure, there's the word itself that has an impact on you, but the way it's designed in that font really brings out that upmarket, sophisticated feel. We'll go back to look at a sans serif font. So sans serif fonts, as you can see, you don't have those decorative elements around the letters. They're a lot more geometric, simpler, plainer, which then leads into the overall feel being a little bit more casual, a little bit more easygoing, approachable. You don't feel as formal. You can access this brand a lot more easily. The very young and modern. Biggest up point is that they are very high on legibility. So lots of body copy, heavy content, sans serifs are great. So often what people do is you might use a serif. Sure, your a serif font works for you because of the kind of brand you are. You might use a serif font for a heading, but then use a sans serif for the body copy where you really want to make it easy on the eyes to read. Perfect and easy example, Arial. Arial's a very old one, been there for, not saying it's the best font out there, just the best example for this case. So visit Ruopehu is a great example to look at when we look at a sans serif. So notice how immediately you feel lighter because of the font. It's not as formal, it's so much more approachable.
It feels friendly. Yeah.
Friendly, absolutely.
Hey, Pallavi, I want to just interrupt you there. Sorry, because really impressive. We've had quite a few people who have been answering in the chat.
Oh, I
knew
can't
what their
wait.
font was. Like they didn't even look it up. They like knew right away. So congratulations to Liz and some of these others that just like went, boom, I know what my font is.
Oh, how cool. I love that. Okay, then I want to look at all of those once we finish this. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is script. This one's the most obvious one. Adds, wouldn't use it for a whole lot of text, but fantastic when you want to add an accent or a flourish, or maybe just one of the sentences or 3 or 4 different words coupled together to bring a specific point out. Low on legibility, as I said, technically they're often known to be lower on technical features like those macrons and things like that. But if you're using them, they fit for purpose for smaller things, and that's what they're meant for. As long as you use them for those, they are brilliant. They can really do a fantastic job. Think brush script. Some of you might know this from using Paint. That's what a script font is. Great example, random image retreat. See how rest of the websites, formal fonts, serif font combined with the sans serif, but then we use the explore and want to rejuvenate and the script font that really stands out. And we use this across. So when we talked about storytelling earlier, the visual piece of the storytelling, this is key. So if you're using these words to stand out in this font, then you continue to do that on your print collateral, on your presentations, on the rest of your marketing material as well. Okay, display fonts, that is the last category for today. Now these ones are the shadow heavy fonts that you would have seen in Paint or Word. The really fancy ones, the ones that we used to love as kids. The ones that really have a fantastic personality. They look really, really cool. So they are great to make your brand memorable because, as I say, they have a very strong personality. They are low on legibility. The key is to use them at a certain size. I wouldn't use them at 12 point for body copy. You're not going to be able to read or anything, but you use them for a bold heading, that's really going to stand out. So using large sizes is a high recommendation for that. Great example for that is Air Chatham's. So Air Chatham's, we use a lot of 3 different fonts there. But we using the Ready for Your Adventure or the Very Fly is a serif font. See that chunkiness that is quite different, that makes those words stand out. So we haven't on purpose, you haven't used this for the body copy, but we have used it for those headings. Okay, then should we move on to a little bit more technical? Where do you get your fonts from? Now, this is $1 million question because often people believe, oh, I just start my computer and open Word and the fonts were there. Yes, they were there, but the industry's grown rapidly in the past 30 years. It started off from just through your computer having it to being able to buy them. You can subscribe them. There's so much to it. So there's your standard Windows, Apple, Android. So the stuff that comes with your hardware. So you buy a computer, you get things with it. You get a Windows subscription, you get an Apple phone, there's fonts that come with it. There's those ones. Then there's a few different really big companies like fonts.com and Monotype that they create their own fonts, but they also supply suppliers of fonts from all over the world. There's Adobe Fonts, which comes with an Adobe subscription. So if you have an Adobe subscription to a design product, there's a list of fonts that you can use for free. There's Google Fonts, which are free, which are our favorite one. Fantastic fonts and all free to use, open source. There's independent type foundries. There's people who do custom typefaces. So Klim Type Foundry is in New Zealand, and they actually made the pure New Zealand font. So that's really exciting. There's lots of different types of licensing. There's subscriptions again, there's open source, there's different kinds of licenses. You can go with, say, 100,000 views might cost you X, or it could be a one-off purchase. There's lots of different kinds of things in there. Now, the biggest thing that we need to know about licensing is you might get me or someone else tell you your brand font needs to be purchased. And then you look it up on Google, and you know what? It's out there on the internet on 10 other websites to get for free. That happens all the time. Not ideal, but a lot of the fonts that you get for free that are pretend ones, there's a lot of things wrong with them in the back end that will cause you problems. So it's really important to know what the font is and whether the licensing needs to be purchased. But
it's crazy how much there is to know.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. But I must tell you, honestly, some fonts, sure, you can find a free alternative, which is great. But there are some fonts that really, really, really do deserve the attention and the price that they ask for. Often it's not a lot. It can honestly range from $50 to $5,000. It's ridiculous, but
I'm not sure any
wisely.
of us, yeah, I'm not sure any of us on this webinar are going to pay $5,000 for a font, but good on
I
those.
wouldn't recommend they do. But yeah, I'm just trying to present the range here. But there is a definite benefit to buying some of them. Maybe you buy a heading font that's really going to stand out, but then you don't buy the body copy font. So there's ways and means around it. But there's definite, they are value add.
Cool. Amazing. Was that everything on fonts?
That actually wasn't, but then I was told to stop. I have had to go back and in my non-webinar time put together the ebook that you can reference so that you don't have to hear me talking about this for that long. So there's a lot in the ebook. If you're interested in any of these subjects, you can reference to that. We'll put the link in the chat for this as well. Should we move on to the next one, Gina? This is going to be a fun one.
Let's talk about it, because I'm pretty sure the next one is DIY.
Yeah.
And you are going to share how people can do something really quickly to make their branding consistent and easy across all channels.
Cool. So what we have chosen for DIY is brand kits in Canva. So I'm going to assume that a lot of you have probably already used Canva. It's a free tool. It's been out there for a few. Gina's probably referenced it millions of times in her talks and webinars and stuff like that. But I want to talk about a specific feature in there, which is called brand kits. Now, what a brand kit is so I'll show you Tomahawk's one as a reference. And then what I'd like to do is we can create a fake demo one so you kind of see how it's used. And hopefully that gives you enough power to start making some of these things yourself in Canva. Now Tomahawk's one is, it's doing something here. Right, this is Tomahawk's brand kit within Canva. So think of a brand kit as a basket of ingredients that you want to make a recipe. You know the recipe, you looked it up the previous day, but the last thing you want is running around finding the ingredients just before you start making it. Think of it as your ingredient basket that's sitting right next to you when you're making the recipe. That's what a brand kit is. That's
a great explanation.
As you can see, I do struggle with cooking. So that's all of your logos. So say we have a full color version, but we also have a white version to use on darker backgrounds. So we had the motif only on a white background, on a transparent background, white only. All of our brand colors, all of our brand fonts. So that's your ingredient basket. What I would like to do is show you. What's my presentation? How have I done that?
You'll get there.
Okay, there it is. So you've probably used someone like us or another design agency, whatever. What you would have received is something that looks like this. So we're going to do a company logo. So you've already got all of this. You've been told what the colors are, you've been told what the fonts for the headings are, etc. But now how do you actually use it in Canva without making a big deal of it? So that's what I'd like to demonstrate today. So we are going to go back into Canva. Sorry, I have done something here.
Ooh, that's a big picture.
A second, sorry.
That's all right. You've got lots open, don't you?
There we go. So let's say you are in Canva. You are wanting to create a new brand kit. You are going to be in here, and I've already pre-populated a brand webinar kit, so I can show you guys today. There's some colors that I've pre-populated, but what we can start off with, say, putting all the logos in here.
So Pallavi, if somebody's going into Canva for the first time, is there some place that they go to create their brand kit?
Good question. Let's start this. So this is where your Canva home screen is.
Yeah.
So there is, you see brand on here on the left. You would click on there. And so we've obviously got, this is our Canva account. So there's a lot of brand kits pre-created there. But see the add new on the top right?
Perfect.
That's where you would click on to start a new brand kit.
Nice. Thank you for that. That way everybody knows right from the beginning where they go. Amazing.
And then once you've created, so I've created one called Webinar Brand Kit just for today, and this is how it starts. So it's got a logo section, colors, fonts, a few other things. We won't do all of them. We'll do the first few basics. So let's go into logos, and then there's say a folder here that you've been provided by your agency that has all your logos. So I'm going to take all of those and upload them onto Canva. Ta-da! You're right there. And then there's all of these colors. So see the add new, that's how you'd add a new color. So let's look at our presentation and go, what is the color? So I added the oranges and the grays. It's the red that I haven't added. So your agency would have given you a code for it. So this one's EE572B. I'm going to go and add that one. So what this is going to do is once you start making things using these colors, you're not going to be tempted to use a random shade of red. You're going to stick with your brand color. That's the benefit of doing this. There's a whole lot of fonts you can do. I've set some up, but I'll edit one to just show. So our brand kit said our font was Barlow in bold. So we've uploaded that, and that's your headings. Does that make sense so far?
Yes. Yeah. That's
fantastic. Awesome. So you've got your brand kit ready. Now you don't have to start from scratch. Canva is really good. It has fantastic templates that you can start from and customize. So I'd like to demonstrate a quick one today. So this one, for example, is a nice mock-up for a square, say, Facebook ad or a post. But it obviously doesn't work for our brand. Our brand's blue and orange and different pictures. So what we're going to do in here, you choose your brand kit, the one that we're working off today. That's already chosen. What it's going to do is let's say I want to make this my brand orange. I go in here, see how it pre-populates the brand colors? Got that right there. I want to change this font to not this font. This is serif font. Mine is Barlow, which is a sans serif. If I go into textiles, it's going to give me all of my textiles under my brand. We can then go and increase the sizes to whatever. Now this logo doesn't work. I want to put my own logo. See what I did there? I said add brand logos, and all of the logos have shown up. So, okay, I want to see all of them. I want to use my orange logo. It's a drag and drop, as easy as that. But you know what?
That's really quick and easy. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? This is the thing that you'd use it for. You drag the logo, but you know what? It doesn't work against the dark background. Maybe I want a white one. There you go. Easy. You've got, or this is what I mean by having all the ingredients at hand. Super easy. Change the button color. Change the text, whatever.
Amazing. Yeah.
So hopefully hopefully that makes your life easier.
Okay, so I'm going to do another shout out question. Anybody that's watching today already use a brand kit in Canva? Let's just get a yes, no, yes, no.
Great.
Or maybe the better question is, now that you've seen a brand kit, would you? That's a better question. Pallavi, you made it look really easy. Thank you. We have one more subject to cover, don't we?
Yes, we do. So this is the last one for today, and one that is again close to my heart for what it does. What we have chosen for something trending is accessibility. Now, the reason we've chosen this is we very consciously did not choose this for something new because it's not new, but it's trending right now because we are finally realizing how important it is. So it's something, so accessibility in the sense of UI and UX is what we're talking about today. What it means is you think accessibility and you think, it's for less able people to look at a website. Yes, it is, but that's not the only thing. By definition, accessibility in UI is that a design that is inclusive, a design that doesn't let allow a few people to experience your product in a certain way and doesn't allow a few others to do that. A design that's inclusive in all its senses, in its messaging, in its images, in its content, in every sense. Now, what's really cool to know here is, like I said, it's not just for less able people. It's for barriers. There can be permanent barriers, sure, when it comes to, say, someone that's colorblind or someone that can't quite make out between contrast because of a low vision or some things like that. But they can be temporary. You could have, let's say you've got a product or a brand, a hotel that has customers that are from, say, 45 to 60. Typically, people that do have glasses. I've forgotten to bring my glasses today, but I do want to look at this website. Now, how does that have an impact? It's things like that. It could be situational. It could be a mother holding a child and can only use one hand right now to navigate to the website. Can she get to the book now button as quickly as she needs to? It's thinking about all of those different scenarios, and the only way to do it is empathy. You need to be empathizing towards the audiences. Yes, we want to think of the product, but it's the people that are going to use the product. So really, really empathizing with those people. And the top one, of course, and Gina would love this, is Google. Google. You want to please Google. Google has very distinct advantages for a website that's accessible. It's increasing by the minute. It is there was a time when only government websites would be accessible because they had to, but you know what, now we all need to be. And there's some really, really big numbers here, and this shocked me even. I mean, I know how important it is, but I wasn't expecting these numbers. Forbes magazine, this is some stats from the US only, but 26% of people, adults, face some form of disability. It could be short term, long term, whatever. And 3% of the internet is accessible. That is a wide
shocking gap. It's shocking. And like you said, it's only been like the big websites. It's only been governments, airlines. We do a lot of airline websites, right? So we've been doing this accessible websites for a while. And what else? Oh, like OTAs and some of the big guys. So shocking that it's only 3%. And considering that it's one of the things that Google's looking for, so you get additional Google juice, right, for your search results if your website
it's an absolute no-brainer. Your website must be accessible. And there's standards. It's nothing to be scared of. There's standards within that as well. There's WCAG standards, which is the web compatible accessibility guidelines, I believe, which is basically the global body that identifies where your website sits. And they've got very achievable standards. They've got a AA, and a AAA. AAA is your government websites where it's like solid level, very detailed. Not all websites need to be there. It does depend on the audience. The government websites audience are so large and so widespread that they do need to do that. We don't. A is acceptable, AA is pretty good. So if you can get to AA, fantastic. And it's quite technical. It is. For all of the people watching the webinar, I think I would like to stress that yes, it can get technical. You don't need to know about all the technical details. You just need to know that it's something to think about.
And to ask your website developer about.
And to ask that question. There's some really easy fixes using color and contrast, some very obvious ones, using the right grays, not using a white text on, say, a light gray background. Some of these things are very obvious. Some are a bit more in terms of you can combine color and contrast, use other elements, maybe color, contrast, and a big font size, things like that. It makes your website easy to use. So easy to use makes good UI. Good UI is good user experience is conversion, which is what we want. Okay, what's next, Gina? I think we have almost covered.
Yeah, we almost covered. We've got 6 minutes left to ask some questions that we have, but let's do a quick wrap up. Thank you, Pallavi. That was a lot. So we have something new, which is that horizontal scrolling, which really provides a rich magazine style dreamy website. Your story is always reliable. Rely on your story. If you have not properly crafted it, and make sure it's embedded across your logo, your tone of voice, your font, then you're not going to have that trust, relatability, and connection. Fonts. My goodness. We all learned so much about fonts. That was amazing, Pallavi. You took us through that DIY example on how to create a brand kit so quickly in Canva, which means you can create posts and ads really quickly without searching forever for your bits of ingredients.
Still being consistent.
And being consistent. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And although it's not new, it's something that's becoming more important as a trend, and that is the accessibility of your website. Whew. Okay, Pallavi, we have 5 minutes. We have 3 people.
Got a few questions that came in prior to the webinar, so we can address those.
Yep. So the people that sent in questions prior, get them answered first. So, Pallavi, trends such as overstimulating brand, doing more with less. How can tourism businesses effectively incorporate trends into their digital marketing strategy while maintaining their unique brand identity and appealing?
I think this one is, there's a lot of trends out there. They keep changing. I think what's really important is to be authentic to your brand story, who you are, what your brand is, who your audience is, what they want. To put it in today's perspective, if crop tops are in and trending, but if they don't look good on you, don't wear them. So do what works for your brand and try not to get distracted almost by some of the things that some other brands might be doing that seem trendy, but are probably not there to last.
So if it's not part of your values, if it's not part of your story and who you are, don't do it just because it's trending. Yeah. What channels are best for storytelling?
This is for you, Gina.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And what I'm going to say, every channel is great for storytelling. Remembering that storytelling, as we've already said, is your actual story, is your values, is your font, is your logo, is how you speak to your customers, is how you answer an email. Your story is shared always. In the most basic of terms, in the most like foundation basics, make sure your story is on your website under About. And whether it's your About page or it's under About and it's Our Story, make sure that that's where it's locked and loaded as the basics. Pallavi, before you answer number 3, somebody just asked about if horizontal scrolling works on a mobile, and I just want to throw that to you for your quick one-word answer.
Yeah. The one word answer is yes, but there are some things that we do like you would for a vertical scrolling website, because it's a desktop is a wider surface, a mobile is a much narrower surface. You would do certain things differently in terms of the backend setup. So there are certain things you would do differently, but the short answer is yes.
Fantastic. Okay, last but not least, we have 2 minutes. The title of the webinar suggests we should be thinking about rebranding or redesigning strategies. Isn't that confusing? For example, I'm not sure I got used to Twitter now being called X.
Okay. This is an interesting one because a lot of brands grow through rebrand, but it's not something that you would do just because. It's a definite no. So agree with that question in that sense. You would do a rebrand if your brand needs a rebrand. How long has your previous brand been in place? Has your audience changed since then? Has your product changed since then? Is the purpose of the product different now? That's where those are the kind of questions I'd be asking before making that decision whether or not to rebrand. So it's not just because it's a big exercise. We want to keep that story consistent across channels, visually as well as through the words. So it's a big exercise. So definitely a great exercise for a lot of brands to do because we all grow and our brand needs to grow with that.
We rebranded at year 10, by the way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Tomahawk actually had a round style. I'm not going to go through that whole story because we've only got a minute left. But at year 10, because we had kind of matured at a company, better knew ourselves, and so much had changed in the industry that we did a rebrand, and we now have the stylized feather. So yeah, that's an example.
Gina, there's a couple of quick questions. Do we have time for those?
Nope, we don't.
Oh,
We're
okay.
exactly 1 hour, and we need to remind everybody, next slide, please. We need to remind everybody that showed up today to watch live, congratulations, because you're going to go in a draw to win 1 hour free consulting with Pallavi
We'll be
and
talking
myself.
more.
And we'll even talk some more together. So we want to say a big thank you to everybody for showing up today, for being part of our series. We'll be sharing the recording with everybody soon, and we'll answer all of your questions that we didn't get around to. Our next webinar is on new technologies with Les. And that will be next month. So again, you guys, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We hope you've gotten some value out of the time you spent with us. Have a beautiful Tuesday. Watch your inbox for the recording and the answers to your question and the winner.
Thank you.
Cheers.